for the latest on what's going on with January 6th. Speaker Johnson making a big announcement late last week that he's going to release the vast majority over time, the vast majority of unseen footage from January 6th. So Steve, welcome back to the show, brother, and for all the work you're doing. Let's start there. How much footage is the speaker vowing to release, and under what kind of a timetable are we talking about here?
He's talking about releasing about 95% of that. Now, what's the other 5% and what makes that nefarious? Nothing. It's the security, secure areas of the Capitol. Let's be honest. There are hidden passageways in the Capitol. There are hidden staircases. There are hidden doorways, and there are places where the members under threat of an emergency would need to escape, and that are not seen online on all of the floor plans of the Capitol that we see. So there are some security concerns. There's a lot of misconceptions about this early release. First of all, the reason why he only released 90 hours to start with of Capitol CCTV is that is the 90 hours that have already been cleared by security review, and those are representative of the clips that have been harvested by independent journalists like myself, Joe Hanneman, Julie Kelly, John Solomon, and others who have already been inside of the viewing room there in one of the congressional buildings and have had the opportunity to review these in advance of their public release. So that's what the first set of releases look like. That's why it's such a minimal amount, because they have gone through the security review. And let's be honest, Steve, this is going to be a monumental task on behalf of these congressional staffers and aides to go through this. In fact, I spoke to a senior aide this morning. This was what they call, a background conversation, so I'm not going to tell you who he is. But the bottom line is that they're thinking about hiring a company to come in and handle this for them, because it's just a monumental task for over 40,000 hours that are going to have to go through frame by frame security review before they can do this. So this is going to take many months for the speaker's promise to release this to the public to finally be fulfilled. Now, a lot of people think, they can upload 40,000 hours to, YouPorn or, whatever the biggest porn site is overnight. Yeah, you can do that, but there's not much security review involved in uploading that kind of video.
How confident are you they're going to follow through with this to the end?
I am confident because, as you know, I have had direct communications with Speaker Johnson, and not only before he was Speaker, but then through other sources and through our congressional contacts. We've been able to communicate directly, and we know that this is going to happen, and it's not going to be easy, as I said, and it's going to take time. Everybody's going to have to be patient. And then the most important thing, Steve, is as these videos start coming out, everybody's got to learn how to look at them and look at them properly, because that's where so much of the confusion took place over this past weekend.
That's exactly where I want to go next. And I said to the audience on Monday, there's a tier of you, and you mentioned several of the names yourself, Julie and others, who were, in on this story before anybody else was. And, I would probably place myself in the second tier of people who have tried to then give you guys platforms once I started having questions about what we were being sold myself and seeing the work that you guys were doing. And so I've tried to give people like you and Julie platforms over the last couple of years to question this narrative that we were sold with what you have discovered. My fear is, however, it's understandable to one degree, of course, because we have been lied to about so many things, this included, to varying degrees over the last several years. But then there's also another industry out there on the right that is happy to take its own narratives that may or may not be true and push them to beyond boundaries of credibility for their own various reasons, economic, political, whatever those reasons happen to be. And I cautioned our audience, given the amount and the volume of footage to be released here, to take a deep breath and just do exactly what we've been trying to do from the beginning. What is the truth here? Because one of the things I'm seeing on Twitter, and let's face it, outside of, the media and intelligentsia that you and I work in, most average Americans are not there. But what I am seeing there, the narratives that are already being crafted is already over the weekend, the complete January 6th narrative was totally discredited and everyone's innocent and let everybody out, including people with like major accounts and big names making these claims. I've been very hesitant to share video clips that people are sharing. I don't know the context. I don't know. I'm kind of just, frankly, I'm following your lead and going with what you're saying because I know this is all you're doing right now. So you tell us, have already this weekend, the outlandish claims that we've already broken the entire January 6th narrative in two and all that kind of stuff. Is that actually true?
No, it's not. And as a matter of fact, this is a open self-confession right here. I have spent more hours over this past weekend corroborating sources that we don't like. I've been agreeing with the sedition hunters, those, open source intelligence, as they call themselves, people that are basically good Germans who are hunting down Americans, innocent Americans, those who did behave nonviolently and innocently on January 6th, and hunting them down and turning them over to the DOJ and to the FBI. But unfortunately, they do good video work, and they've been doing that for 2.5 years. So this is a very, very unfortunate circumstance in that you have a situation where not only those like MTG, but also Senator Mike Lee. I mean, he got caught as well in one of these myths or one of these misportrayals of one of these videos where you saw this particular individual walking down the hallway toward an exit at the Capitol, and he flashes what looks like a badge. Oh, well, then obviously this shows that these types of individuals were embedded in that crowd and creating problems. It turns out that this particular individual, his name is Kevin Lyons, and back in July of this year, he was convicted and he was sentenced to 41 months in prison for what he called his own idiocy, his own mayhem creating. He was actually in Pelosi's office and stole a prized photo of Pelosi that she had of herself with, the civil rights historic leader, John Lewis. Well, this guy, Kevin Lyons, stole that photo, and when he left the Capitol, he got in his car and immediately started driving back home to Chicago. And then when he started realizing that he was in trouble, he ditched the photo somewhere and it's never been recovered. So the point being is that until you are able to see the full context of these individuals that you start identifying in these videos. Look, it took us days and days and hours to piece together these stories about the Capitol Police, Officer Harry Dunn and Special Agent David Lazarus that we brought to the public already. It was a lot of work, and it was dozens and dozens and dozens of different cameras that we had to piece together and cross-triangulate and it's not an easy thing. And there's no way in 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds of video that you can look at that and go, aha, we've got them. The narrative is destroyed. No, it's not going to be that way. And it can't be the way until you know who that character is that you're looking at. And you know what he was doing an hour earlier or 3 hours earlier or wherever else he was inside or outside the building at the time. And you can't say that, oh, we've got him now, because it just does not work that way.
Here's the thing, and let's assume, because if people are doing this for grifting purposes, nothing we will say will deter them from that anyway, so let's just set them aside, and let's talk about people like you mentioned, Senator Lee, who obviously is a conscientious individual, okay? I think but he's also an attorney, and so he should know better, you're right. Because we have to understand here, the forces that we are up against, we're not going to get to make mistakes. It's very similar to when I went after the COVID narrative. I had to triple, quadruple, quintuple check everything. The first time I was wrong, I'm not probably just out of a job. I'm out of a career. They're going to just nail me to a wall and to a door on everything. Everything. That's why I would slow a lot of times with the jab or masks and some things until more real-time data, despite what my instincts were telling me. If I could not support everything with data and their own data sources, I couldn't just make up my own, then I was going to be completely discredited. And I think we have to understand, I think we all agree there are people still indefinitely detained or have been put to prison that should not be there. But we're not going to help them if we run and make leaping conclusions that discredit the overall narrative that we're trying to now counter with and create based on the fullness of the evidence before we even get a chance to establish that via the fullness of the evidence. You see what I'm trying to say? That the first time that we go out there and start making mistakes, We're not going to help those people that need our help. They're in fact, the feds are going to say, see, you just can't trust anything these people do. They're so eager to hide their insurrection. They took the footage of the insurrection itself and just totally bastardized it.
Look, I'll tell you right here, these congressional staff members who we've been working with in the video room there at the Capitol have been not only very helpful, they want these stories out. They want this video out. This is important to them. But they needed our assistance on the media side. And again, going through that litany of names, myself, Julie, John, Joe, those of us who got in early. The truth of the matter is, and this is directly their words, they were using us as guinea pigs to develop a system and to go through and review and see how this could be released. And that doesn't mean edited for a narrative or anything. They want it all out, come what may. The point being is that when we went into that process, we had to learn it ourselves. And this morning, a senior congressional aide called me to review the fallout from this weekend's first release of this small batch of videos. And he asked me how I thought it went. And I said, I don't think it went well for a lot of reasons. The first and primary reason is that those videos were released without time codes. That gives the skeptics reason to say that these have been altered, they've been edited. I've saw that online. We also had the mistakes of not being able to release everything in full context because they were just small clips. Sometimes it was, whether it was 10, 15 minutes or seconds rather, or a full minute of a clip, it wasn't everything in context. So that allowed a lot of room for misinterpretation and knee-jerk reactions and emotionalism to be applied to what people saw. And so those types of errors are still being made. And when I say that, I am still 100,000% in favor of all of that being released to the public at large. Let the public go through it. Let them see what they want to see, interpret what they want to interpret. But at the end of the day, Steve, it's going to take professional analysts to go through there and put these pieces of the puzzle together. And that's ultimately the only way that we're going to know all the true stories of the individual events and the individual characters that we see in these videos.
Based on what you saw this weekend, what was the most compelling piece of evidence that you've been able to corroborate and put together from the various angles that are now at your disposal?
This is the single largest misconception that our side has about what happened on January 6th, and it exploded this weekend online. There was not a single exterior door breach of the Capitol building. There were 7 different doors that were breached and 10 different breaches because 3 of them were breached more than once. There was not a single one of those doors, despite what everyone thinks they have seen with their own eyes, that was breached by Capitol Police, or that Capitol Police opened for the protesters to enter the building.
Because I saw a lot of claims, again, major accounts on the right claiming that they did open the doors and let the people in. You're saying that's not true?
That is absolutely not true. I have seen the video to every single one of those door breaches. Every single one of them is the result of what happened at the northwest side in that first window breach, where a Proud Boy busted through with a police shield that he had stolen. He busted the window. They were able to jump through that window, and then they were able to release the doors. A magnetic, they always talk about these magnetic locks, and this is another misconception. People think that those are only controlled from the control room, and that was the command center that pushed a magic button that released those doors. No, that's not true. Every single one of these doors meet the DC fire code, which means they have to be safe exits from any building, like any other public building in DC. So as a result of that, if you hold down the bar on the door for 3 seconds, then it triggers the release mechanism, and then 15 seconds later, the alarm sounds, and then the door opens. So you'll see throughout these 7 door breaches, you'll see guys come and start kicking on the door or holding the bar. They push, and it doesn't do it. Finally, they trigger the release, and then magically the door opens. And so the point being is they didn't read the sign. Remember the Bowman story when he went over and he pulled the fire alarm? Mm-hmm. The first thing he did is he took those 2 signs off of those doors because he didn't want people to see that there was a release mechanism protocol for that. Those same exact signs that he took off that we saw on video were posted on every single one of those exit doors in the Capitol. It was just a matter of people not reading them when they came up to them and they started pushing on them. But what ended up happening is once they reached that northwest window, they came through, they opened that door, hundreds of protesters started flowing in, they started spreading out throughout the Capitol, and they started the initiation of opening the doors from the inside. Capitol Police never opened those doors. Now, people are going to take what I said right now, and they're going to jump online and they're going to say, no, that's not what I saw with my own eyes. I saw it with my own eyes that day. I've seen it on the videos. No, you didn't. You saw Capitol Police officers holding the doors open after they were overwhelmed by the numbers of people that were coming in and de-escalating. Did they hold the doors open? Yes, they did. Did they open some doors on the interior? Yes, they did. Did they open doors on the interior and exterior to let people out? Yes, they did. But they never, ever, a single time on the 7 doors that were breached themselves, as a Capitol Police officer, opened the door to the protesters. Every breach happened by one of the protesters. That's an inconvenient truth.
It is, but we have to follow the truth here, one way or the other. We got into this mess by them not having to, and we can't respond by refusing to do it ourselves. Steve, you guys are doing the Lord's work, man. Please keep it up and keep us updated. All right, thank you.